Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast, episode number 83. Matt Duff, Jeff Danker, and Major League Bowhunter. Big Buck Registry is a virtual museum of hunting stories. We preserve a piece of Americana by interviewing and recording hunters about their hunts and experiences from across the country. And who knows, maybe we'll learn a thing or two along the way that'll help us take our hunt to the next level.
Hi, this is Dennis Fink from Ozonics, one of the partners. You're listening to my favorite hunting podcast on iTunes, the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast.
Hi, I'm Greg Ritz with Hunt Masters. You're listening to one of my favorite podcasts on iTunes, the Big Buck Registry, Big Buck Podcast.
Hey folks, this is Dean Vanier with Northwoods Common Sense, and you're listening to my favorite and most informative hunting podcast show on the internet, Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast. I've kicked Dusty to the curb, and we've replaced Dusty with the most fabulous co-host you could ever imagine, Allison Roberts-Onan.
What's up, Big Buck Registry podcast listeners?
No, I'm just kidding. Dusty's right here, too.
Yeah. What? Oh, I mean, seriously?
We're not the same show without the big dog, man. We got to have you around.
Seriously, do you think that Jay would actually kick me out? Come on now.
Now, it's funny, but we were talking about trading, we were talking about fantasy football and fantasy stuff, and we were thinking about trading Dusty. He was thinking about trading me to another podcast unit.
Oh, man.
I was like, well, maybe we could get 4 or 5 future trade picks, or just, I don't know, not sure. But he didn't think that was very funny.
4 or 5. I'm thinking that you're going to need 20 or 30 to replace me.
All right.
What a day.
A first-round draft pick, perhaps?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I guess that might work. I don't know. You might want to take 2 first-round draft picks. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like, fantasy football, fantasy baseball, whatever.
Fantasy podcasting.
Fantasy podcast hosts.
Yeah, I like that.
We're sitting here at the 2015 Archery Trade Association show in Indianapolis, Indiana. What a great show.
Awesome show. Yep. Allison, you just got into town.
Yes, this morning.
We whisked you away.
Yeah. I got whisked away. It was so much fun.
No, it's pretty cool. We was able to be walking through the show, and we ran into Allison, and we had special guests that were waiting on us. It was quite the experience, really.
Yep. We're speaking with Major League Bowhunter today.
Yeah, Matt Duff and
Jeff Danker.
And we're going to talk some real serious techniques and issues that an archery hunter ran into.
Yeah.
This come from the pro level that, talking about the target being an issue.
Kind of like, almost like the philosophy of hunting.
Yeah.
The theory behind the hunt. Mm-hmm. Not just the how-to, but that there's a feeling, a theory. There's an emotional side of things. There's which can lead to a physical situation if you're not confident, if you're not prepared, or if you'll start doing things that you don't realize you're doing, and you have to figure out what went wrong and why you're continually missing the target. Mm-hmm. And he had to actually go through that. Matt did, just to figure out target panic. And it
was a major mental issue.
It was
a major overcoming that he found what he was doing wrong, and he fixed the problem. It took time. It took a lot of preparation as far as the archery shooting and getting his back to his form, lower the poundage of
his bow, just to get that form back to the point where he wasn't actually getting panicked anymore.
Indoor shooting has caused me to have target panic at times, and I'll just keep practicing and, end up working through that but yeah, at different times that will set in. So,
and that's something that Matt Duff experienced. So it's a real thing.
To hear a professional say that they have been through that is very encouraging.
He's like us.
Yeah, he's just like us.
We all go through the same things.
Yep.
And that's another important message that, yes, these guys are making a living doing this. Mm-hmm. They're on TV, but they have the same problems we do.
Right.
It's the job, just like any other job.
But they're hunters just like we are.
And they're hunters, and mistakes happen, and failures, and you got to work through it, just like you do in life. So, I think we should get him on right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get him on.
Well, Matt, thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah, I'm glad y'all invited me up, man.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
We've been trying to get you for a while.
I know. Well, I can be
tough guy to get hold of.
I can be difficult to get hold of during the fall, especially. I mean, don't feel bad because my mother and father both, give me a hard time about it too. We just need a text every now and then. Let us know where you are. And when we get on the road trying to get footage for the show, it just. We may be in Kansas and plan on being there for 7 days, and that may last 2 days.
Gotcha.
And the weather's not right, and we turn and go somewhere else. But, so the phone, and I use the excuse I'm always out in the boondocks, so the phone doesn't work well either. That's part of my excuse.
Right. It works, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So how did Major League Bowhunter get started in the first place?
Well, originally after baseball, I'd gotten hooked up with, some of the ball playing buddies and gotten involved as one of the original owners of Buck Commander. Chipper and I had been friends for a long time and been helping each other guide hunts down in Texas. So that's kind of how I got to know Chipper. Really wasn't through baseball.
Gotcha.
It was actually...
Which we would assume was through baseball.
Right. It was actually one of his former teammates that had come through Memphis when I was in AAA with the Cardinals, and he had grown up down there in DeLand, Florida with Chipper, but he also played in the big leagues with the Marlins and the Braves. Anyway, he comes in and he's telling me about Chipper, and they were big buddies. He was a big hunter, and I was already a fan of him anyway.
Yeah.
He got drafted right as I was kind of high school senior, and he was the kind of the All-American #1 pick, with the Braves, and so I'd followed his career. But this guy actually had, once he retired, was working for Chipper down on his ranch. So I went down one off season, got to meet Chipper. We, kind of hit it off as hunting buddies more or less. So it was on an annual duck hunting trip in Gillette, Arkansas, where we ran into Willie Robertson and Phil and the Duck Commander crew.
Right.
And so that's really where everything got started. We talked to Willie. He was getting ready to kind of do the Buck Commander thing. Chipper and I got involved in that and did that for a few years. And in the process, we ran into Jeff Danker, our partner with Major League Bowhunter, and Jeff and I just we're cut out of the same cloth, real passionate about deer hunting, and we had been talking about doing something along the lines of a really educational type of show. I mean, really getting down to the nitty gritty and explaining everything, not just assuming people know what it means to hunt the wind, or what a set or hang a stand, that kind of stuff. And we kicked it around for a couple of years, and then finally, just things were right. The direction Buck Commander was going and where my life was, I was on the verge of getting married and doing the NRA show as well. And we finally said, let's do it. Let's do Major League Bowhunter. Cool. And so we started that. We're in our fifth. We're just wrapping up our 5th season of filming now.
Gotcha. So Major League Bowhunter is you, Chipper and Jeff
Danker. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
So we're based our office and headquarters studio, post-production and all that is in Chandler, Oklahoma. And, I still live in Mississippi. Chipper's down in Texas now full-time on his ranch. And, we're all over the country getting footage, hunting. We've got a lot of leases and friends and family, really, that we've networked over the years where we hunt.
Yeah.
And really, our show is, and our life, too, is more about just going and putting something on the ground with a bow and arrow. It's kind of a all-year thing. And, I get more enjoyment out of the strategic part, or, hey, I may put a food plot in here or there, and it's the 365 days a year thing. And when we go somewhere to hunt, we're not going somewhere and being, guided or put on a deer. There are places that we have a lot of time and money invested in.
A lot of blood, sweat, and tears into that.
Right.
Yeah,
so, and it doesn't always, work out, killing stuff. And I think that's one of the big differences that we're not afraid to show, an episode where, for me, the last couple of years has been a struggle. And,
right.
But that's the reality of bow hunting.
Yeah, and that's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
That's what
right. We don't sugarcoat it. I mean, we
Right.
show it, and believe me, there, especially after last year, I went through target panic for the first time and didn't really understand what that word really was. I mean, I had heard the term.
What is that? Let's talk about that.
I had heard the
more.
term before,
Yeah.
and to me, I just assumed it was, you just kind of literally panicked right before the shot, like in a nervous type way, or you just sort of wigged out or freaked out. But really, it's not that at all. It's just, and my wife, who's a professional pistol shooter, says, a lot of the world champion shooters have gone through it, and it's really more of a mental thing where your eyes are fixed on the target and where you want that pin to be. And your muscles and your brain never get that pin over the sight picture. So you truly never get the pin where you want that arrow to go. And if your bow is dialed in and the arrow is going to go where that pin is, you're looking at the vitals on that deer, but you never actually get that pin over that heart or the lungs.
Right.
Okay.
And looking back at it, I mean, I can think of several deer in the last 10 years that I've shot low on. And that's what I was doing. I mean, your eyes want to see where you're shooting. And so I learned a valuable lesson last year. And I kind of went backwards. I went to a lesser pound pull bow just to make my form better, and kind of had to, take a step back as far as just shooting. I'd never had that problem before. So
how'd you diagnose it? Did you go back to old footage and say, I know I was on it? And
after really being honest with myself about some of the encounters I had, and looking back, I could see that, and we actually did have some second angle footage seeing my arm drop a little bit. One of the things people in general do is they shoot and then they want to peek. Even if you're shooting a rifle or whatever it is, you want to pull the trigger instead of really following through. You want to peek and see where the arrow's going, or where if you hit it,
right.
Something you're shooting with a gun. And so that's part of the problem. But just looking back on it and thinking in my head and truly being settled on that spot, I look back and I go, I never really got that pin. I was close, and right at the last minute, I think, you think you're going to get the pin where it needs to be, but you pull the trigger and you shoot low. And
Gotcha.
And that's really what target panic is. And it's so funny after word kind of got out, because I had opportunities at 4 of the biggest deer I have ever had opportunities at, and in years past, I mean, I'm killing some deer that are really good, respectable deer I'm putting on the wall, but these, those true once-in-a-lifetime type deer, which has something to do with the target panic, in my opinion. I mean, it's an emotion that you're going through at that moment of truth, and there is a difference for me in that 150 that's, or let's say it's a 140-inch deer that's a old 7-year-old that I know needs to go, and he's a trophy, good enough size rack that I'm going to put on the wall. There's a different emotion in that deer, for me anyway, in that 185, because I've never gotten that deer.
Right.
And it's kind of the thing every hunter chases, is that one deer that kind of defines your career, whether you're in this industry or not, just personally.
Absolutely.
Everybody's got a buddy that's, boy, he killed that 175 or that biggest deer in your area. And for me as a hunter, I've never broken the 168 is the biggest deer I've ever killed as far as gross score with a bow. And, Jeff, my partner, I mean, he's got several deer over 170, 2 over 200, and that's that true kind of magazine buck, and
right.
every hunter dreams of that. And I had those opportunities last year and shot low, and word got out, and somebody that I looked up to and still do, Michael Waddell, obviously, who's paved the way for a lot of these TV shows, came up to me last year at SHOT Show and said, I've been to it, I've been there, and man, that was big when he told me that. And he, a part of it was the TV show, the pressure of getting footage.
Right,
You're out there on the road so much. When you finally put the cameraman and the encounter and everything together, and now you've got to pull that trigger, there's a lot riding on that trigger. And I think that has a little bit to do with it. So it plays into your emotions a little more than if I'm sitting in the stand by myself.
How do you go about curing that? What do you do with the pressure of having a cameraman? Not necessarily for a listener that's a TV show host, but somebody that's trying to record herself plus a cameraman. How do you get over that pressure of having that almost the trigger pull that's counting on that?
Well, it's just more of a concentration, I think, and talking to Michael, and then actually T-Bone, who's a world champion, target shooter and a good hunter in his own right, said he went through it during the competitive part, as a professional shooter competitively, and he gave me some drills to do and things, and one of the things is drawing your bow back and putting that pin where you want it to be without an arrow, and never intend on shooting, because you don't have that mindset that you're leading up to this big crescendo where I'm going to pull the trigger and let an arrow fly. Right. So you're just concentrating on aiming. Right. And I ought to take notes from my wife. She's a world champion pistol shooter, and she draws the pistol. Part of her training is thousands and thousands of repetitions of drawing the pistol and acquiring the target with not even a magazine in the pistol.
Wow.
And as a bow hunter, you don't even think of that really. But that type of stuff, helps. It's muscle memory. And then it's just, part of it is just dealing with the pressure, just like when I was playing baseball. I mean, when you get moved up a level, I mean, there's a difference going from A ball to double A. It's a little bit bigger stadium, a little bit better players. There's a different emotion in dealing with that transition. And then especially getting called up. I got called up from double A and never had played in AAA level, so I went from AA to the big leagues, so I went from 4,000 people a night to 35,000, and the mental aspect of that, it affects your body, it affects your physical traits, and everybody can relate to that in some form.
Absolutely. Mental's big. It will turn into a physical if you
whether
don't
you're
pay attention
standing
to
in
it.
front of somebody giving a presentation or a speech, and you don't, you feel awkward, your body, or you're, a golfer, and you can sit there on the practice range and hit ball after ball straight, and then you get on the tee box and somebody pulls up behind you, the next group waiting, and you've drilled them down the fairway for 17 holes, and on the 18th you dribble one off to the ladies' tee box.
Just takes
it's
somebody
because
looking
your
at
brain,
It's your brain.
and that's what you really have to overcome, and just be honest with yourself and know that it is a factor that you need to address. For me,
Let me ask you, as you walked over here to sit down with the Big Buck Registry, did you have to go through a mental cycle to kill the nerves and all that on the way in here?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because this type, I love talking about hunting and talking shop, and this is
better.
Yeah, this is stuff that I really enjoy doing, and growing up hunting, I love all aspects of the hunting, and I enjoy the strategic part, and I think putting so much into the planning and the preparation is what brings you that pressure at that moment, for me anyway.
There's a love cycle there. You don't prep and you don't plan and you don't put all this work into something that you don't love.
Right.
That separates a lot of hunters from going from just the average hunter to another scale of hunter and taking your hunt to the next level. You got to love to hunt. You got to love to chase the whitetail. You got to.
Yeah, that's it. And prime example is, I've had an opportunity this year, to shoot some hogs and, bobcat with the bow and things like that. And that's when you just, you go into your muscle memory, you draw back. There's just not any feeling other than, okay, there's a hog, I'm going to get a shot at him. Let me kill this thing, and on a big trophy whitetail, especially, that old mature 5 or 6 year old buck that has been there, you've been playing cat and mouse with, the heartbeat's a little faster, and the physical aspect of it is affected by your, brain. I mean, even getting the bow off the hook, a real tree hanger, shameless plug, getting the cam off the hook when there's a huge buck, the buck of a lifetime walking in.
It's a whole different
It's almost like it's stuck to the hook. Where, when you're getting ready, you can take it off 1,000 times, no problem. But when that buck's coming in, it's like you can't, get to anything. Yeah. And that's part of what's so cool about hunting is where else can you get that emotion from? What else makes you feel that way? And then when you do have that success, you just can't pay for that feeling.
Right.
You can't find it anywhere else.
If I could figure out how to go to my backyard and get that adrenaline rush of a 160 plus inch deer, I'm going to go with 160. That's a great number.
Yeah.
It's going to make the old pumper pump in your chest. You got a 160 class buck coming in. If I could figure out how to make that happen in the backyard for everybody,
you'd be a very wealthy man.
Not only that, but we'd all be great hunters.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Going back to like the miss, when you realized you were missing a lot, being in sports, I'm sure your buddies rib you a little bit.
Oh yeah,
you fought it too. You fought the guts out of it. I'm sure.
Yeah. There's no question. And we all give each other a hard time, and it's kind of the sports mentality is, you better check your ego at the door. And I know that Jeff and Chipper, both kind of pulling for me with that, especially on a couple of these big deer, because we're all individually out there doing our thing, and because we all have a passion for it, but we're also trying to bring a product to the viewer that they can enjoy, and putting some big deer on the ground is part of that. And but what I've learned in this and found in this with the way our show is whether or not we hit the deer perfect and we're out there 3 or 4 days and everything falls into place, or we struggle and the deer was there and now all of a sudden we don't see him anymore, we never get a shot at him. There's a story in that a Bowhunter can learn from. Why is that deer not in that same shelter belt or that scope of timber that he's been in for the last 3 weeks until you go in to hunt him? Right. Did you scare him off? Did you do something that
plays a role in everything,
right.
too?
So by looking at everything and all the details, by me, whether I have an encounter or don't have an encounter, I'm going to be after a specific deer. I mean, that's kind of my MO. I like to chase deer that mean really something to me, whether it's on my own property or it's a specific deer I let go the year before that I let grow and he's put on 20 inches. It's hard for me to go out and shoot a deer that doesn't have some sort of backstory almost to me.
Right, yeah.
And that's the difference in, I'll go because people ask me all the time, how can you go so long and, pass up some good deer that you definitely could make a TV show with? Yeah. I could say, oh man, that's a good, it's a good deer, he's a big buck, looks good on camera, but I know he's a 3-year-old and I know that's the deer that doesn't need to be taken off this particular property. I just don't compromise with that. And going into the season, me and my field producer, Big George, is with me, knows that I'm not going to just shoot a deer to get out of there or try to get back some money, recoup some money for being in Kansas for 18 days. And, hey, we shot a buck. It's not really the one we're after, but he'll do. Right. I just won't do that. Yeah. And so it makes for some long seasons.
Hey, that's all right, though. That's opportunity that's going to come to you.
That's just me.
Seems like there's a whole lot of education that you can get in a season if you pass on several deer.
Absolutely.
And if you just shoot the first thing that walks in front of you, it'll take you years to get what you'll get in a whole season.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and just like with sports or anything in life, if everything's falling into place, you start, getting confident and thinking, hey, I got all this figured out. And sometimes it takes, failures to really become a better hunter or, learn some things.
Yeah. You couldn't have said that any better.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And a lot of times, even in sports, a lot of times the guys that were the superstar athletes or, a guy like Chipper, and not to use him as an example, but there are guys that had tremendous gifted talents that, were great hitters or pitchers or whatever that never had to really fail. Sometimes those guys can't relay how to instruct, where, some of the best instructors I had in the minor leagues and even in the big leagues were guys that you wouldn't even know their names. They didn't have illustrious careers. Now they were on the way up, but they had some failures that made them become a better coach.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because they had to go through that and figure out how to tackle it. Just like me with the target panic. Now I truly understand it and know, for me, I went from, pulling 72 pounds and, it was just like this moment of violence getting ready to happen. Now, the bow was extremely fast, screaming, and I could group pretty good at 50 yards with the target, but I wasn't comfortable doing that. I went back to pulling about 62 pounds, and now my form is way better. I can follow my arrow better. I'm not shooting as fast feet per second, but I am a way better shot now. And I never would have done that if I'd have hit all those deer last year, kind of gotten lucky. And I've never felt like I've been a great bow shot as a target shooter, but this year has made me where, I mean, I feel like, shooting out to 100 yards, I feel pretty good.
Yep.
And I've shot more to target this year than I ever have. Yep. And that's what I needed to do. You get hunting, you get your bow dialed in preseason, and then you get out in the woods and you might fling an arrow every now and then just to make sure your sight's not knocked off. And you end up going the whole season only shooting a handful of times. Even if you have a successful season with us, you're going to shoot 4 or 5 times at a buck. Right. You're not shooting your bow enough. Right. And repetition, breeds that success. Yep. And that's one of the ways you're asking how you can combat that is just by so much shooting and muscle memory. When that pressure's built up, you still have the mental aspect, but your body knows what to do. You take over, you put the pin where it needs to be before you pull that trigger.
And that's something that is tough to discover.
Right.
That's a big discovery.
Yeah.
That's something that's often overlooked. If I want a fast bow, I want it shooting the best. That's not always the case.
Right. That's exactly right.
High heat don't mean,
that's
success.
Right. That's right.
When you come back, would you share some real step-by-step, play-by-play hunts that you've been on? Maybe stuff we haven't seen on TV.
Okay. That sounds good.
Cool,
awesome.
man.
Talk to you guys in a little bit.
All right, just came back from the break. And Matt brought Jeff with us now, and we get to hear some Jeff's side of the story.
Well, I'm a loud talker, obnoxious, but I like the deer hunt.
But we were just talking about the whole target panic and the pressure of, making that shot count when you finally get it and the camera work and the strategy comes together. And, Jeff's made, some excuses for me, made me feel better about things. But like I told him last year, I said, at some point you got to look at yourself and go, I'm not getting that deer on the ground, period, whether it's the camera stuff or it's my strategy or the making the shot. And he is one of the best I've ever seen it. He gets it done, and so.
Well, I think it boils down to, I watched Duff and, we were in Alberta, Canada this year, and we were getting ready, and we were, we start out like we always do, shooting 20 yards and 30, and, we always end up to about 100 yards, and Duff is just piling these arrows at 100 yards, worked on his bow, but I think it comes down to, because Duff had confidence. Duff had confidence there, and I mean, me and Duff play a lot of golf in the summer, and we all know
which
if you got
usually win.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
If we we're about dead even.
Yeah. Right.
But it all comes down to confidence. It don't matter what you're doing, whatever your hobby is, whatever you love to do. If you're playing golf you can be doing everything the right way, mechanics, but if you don't have confidence, you're not going to play good. You're not going to score well.
That plays a major role.
It plays a major role in anything a person does. And I think it has nothing to do with anybody's ability, and especially Duff's. I mean, Duff can, unbelievable shot. But, when you get bad confidence and all of a sudden bad things happen, like I said, if you're a golfer, you would understand. I mean, if you're in the middle of a round, you can never get out of that funk of confidence. Now, you can go the next day or even later that day and maybe get your confidence back. But once you get in the middle of it, it's so hard to get it back. And I believe that is where, Duff got.
Mental challenge.
Yeah.
It's a mental challenge. Any kind of archery hunt's a mental challenge.
Right.
You got to stay strong all the way through till you make that kill shot.
Yeah.
But, I mean, like I was telling y'all earlier, for me, I mentioned about Jeff and the amount of big deer he's killed, and I have yet to get that kind of that icebreaker booner, and I think that's played into a lot of the pressure that I've felt on these 180-inch, 190-inch deer, and Jeff's got several of those under his belt, so getting that first one, I mean, has been a challenge for me.
That's okay though. That's totally fine. Yeah. It's a challenge for anybody. Everybody that listener of the show, Booner's no joke. It's a challenge for every hunter. Just because you guys are on TV doesn't mean you don't go through the same challenges everybody else does.
Right.
You know, that's what's real about that.
I always tell everybody, I mean, a booner's no harder to kill than a 130, but he's harder to have.
Right.
And that's the deal is having them. And, you know, and I think I was pretty fortunate where I grew up and being able to get some really good ground, and ground not like Duff's, ground that I could see and learn, right, and have those big deer, and then be able to, you know, learn to be able to kill them. And I always say this, I mean, you know, I'll just be straight up. I'm not the best bow shot in the world. I'm none of that. But I try to put myself in that situation where I'm in the best situation, because it's buck fever is when you feel out of control.
Right.
And and I missed a booner in Iowa this year, and I got it out of control because the deer didn't do the exact thing I thought he was, and I lost control because I had limbs in the way and this and that, and then I got nervous. You know, when a big deer's coming in and he's coming where I thought he would, I got the wind, so I'm not nervous there, and everything's good. And, you know, if you track my record back to every big deer I've shot, 31 yards and in is about what you're going to get. Now, I can shoot a long ways, but that confidence of having him there with the right wind, knowing I didn't put a footprint out there, so he's coming, I have nothing to worry about. And that is, you know, it don't always happen that way, but when it does happen that way, that's where I have that confidence. And that's what it boils down to. The day I missed the booner, I knew things were bad as it was happening, and I missed him. And it was a lot me.
It's a lot to play a major role. That it's almost like setting all your ducks up in a row. If everything's set up, your confidence levels through the roof. Mm-hmm. You know what's going to happen. You're confident that the wind direction's right. Your setup's right. You're not going to be seen, and the buck almost gets in the same zone that you're in. He's confident that he's coming right down that shooting lane. Mm-hmm. You're confident he's coming down that shooting lane, and it makes it happen. Right. You know, I'm fortunate enough that I've been in a situation with a very nice buck, and I made the harvest on him, and every card that I had on the table was laid in the perfect. Right. It was laid out perfect. You know, and that's great that you bring that up. Yeah. You know, when the buck comes in all jittery, all nervous, and he knows something ain't right, it puts you in the mindset that something ain't right.
Well, it's a lot like Duff. You know, everybody knows he's a pitcher for St. Louis, and you know, as a pitcher, and I've heard Duff talk about this situation before. He goes up there with all the confidence in the world. He can put that ball anywhere he wants, and knows that he's going to get this guy out. And when you got that kind of confidence, now not to say when you got that kind of stuff, Duff didn't get beat at times, because that batter might have had that confidence that day too, and beat Duff on his best pitch, because that buck can still beat us at times.
Absolutely.
But I mean, same thing. I grew up roping, and if I went out there and tried not to miss, I'm done.
Right.
But if I went out there like my dad told me and said, "Man, just go out there and saw his horns off," and you had that mental deal. You go out there, I mean, you're not playing to lose. Right. You're playing to win.
Yeah, it makes you stronger.
Yeah. And sometimes, I mean, and Duff will be the first to tell you back pitching days, if you ain't got the confidence, and it's not only that you ain't got the confidence, how do you get it back? And, you know, and that's where, you know, with what we do, and Duff is, you know, he's more disciplined as far as he's a 5-year-old guy. And see, I'm not. I'm a 5-year-old guy on a lot of my places and whatever, but Duff's a 5-year-old guy that's been beat through his head, and that's just where his heart is, no matter where we go.
Right.
I mean, if I go to Alberta for 7-8 days, well, I got a different mentality myself. But I think the reason our show is very special is because Chipper's who he is. No one's changing him.
Right.
Duff's who he is. No one's changing him. And I'm just as stubborn as him. Ain't no one changing him.
Right. Yeah. That's what it's got to be. Though.
Who's the most stubborn of the three?
That would be a very tough one to call. Yeah. We're all pretty.
I think in different areas we're different.
Who's the best shot of the three of you?
That would be a day-to-day deal. I mean, it's you know,
that was a loaded question, by the way.
Yeah, definitely loaded.
But I mean, it really boils down to, like we were talking about earlier. You know, last year, not this past season we just went through, but I mean, when we were getting ready to go to Alberta, I mean, I was just getting set up, flinging a few arrows, and I was like, well, once I get to Alberta, I have a couple of days. Where he had been shooting, we had been doing post-production from the year before. He already had his bow dialed in. He was shooting in the summer. He had his target set up, and every afternoon, once he got home from the office, you know, he was flinging a few arrows, and he had gotten, he was shooting 65, 70 yards and had practiced and put in that time. So when we got to Alberta, I mean, he'd been practicing a lot where I hadn't. And this year, going into the season, I had shot more. We moved, my wife and I had moved locations, and having an archery guy that you trust. Jeff, grew up out there in Chandler. He's got a guy that is phenomenal, Joe Reddy out there at his bow shop. He sets all Jeff's bows up, and he feels really good. And I had not had that guy. In fact, Joe had been setting my bow up for the last couple of years, but I couldn't get out there. I needed to find a guy that I trusted and liked how he did things. And so I was able to go spend, one day I went to the archery shop about 1 o'clock and left when they closed the doors. And we, were cutting some arrows. I was getting the agenda redialed in. I cranked a bunch of poundage off. We changed my arrow cut. I had my arrows cut too short. And so I spent the whole day in the archery shop that day and really fine-tuned my setup like I never have. And it's shown. Now when I'm shooting, I get mad at 20 if I can't have all the arrows touching.
Yeah.
And at 30 or 40, I need to put a group in, half dollar size, I feel like.
Right,
and
absolutely.
if it's off, then I'm, know how to adjust it. Whereas before, as long as I'm kind of close, I'm good. And then I wouldn't shoot in between hunts. And that's where we all do this. We get so, going and you're getting up in the morning, you've got the camera equipment, you're hunting hunting till noon or sometimes all day. You come in, you're tired, you want to get a little bit of nap if you can, some food, and you're right back out there. Well, then now it's dark. So you've gone a day and hadn't shot, and you look up and 7 days have gone by and you haven't shot that bow. We might shoot once to make sure the sight's on right before we go out, but we don't spend 30 minutes shooting 15, 20 arrows, you know. You get out of practice.
Right. Do you find that shooting bow and arrow routinely throughout the year is important as well, just like we should?
Yeah. Well, I think Duff's touching big time on it. Definitely important. But what we do, it kind of creates a monster. You're all excited when you leave, and you've been practicing all summer because, let's face it, anything you do, whether it's whatever, you need muscle repetition, because the last thing you need when a 180-inch deer's walking in going, that needs to happen naturally. You need to be watching his body language and see which way he's going to go, and having positive attitudes, or positive thinking. And so, I definitely think it's important. But again, it's a monster that what we do, because it's not a weekend. It's 90 to 100 days. And so it goes back to what we preach is details. Everything. If you want to harvest mature bucks on a consistent basis, you need to be taking care of every detail and doing your very best. And we're just as guilty as anyone else of some discipline at times. Now, for the most part, the way we hunt hard, we hunt smart. We're pretty disciplined there, but I'd say the bow is, when you're up and down trees, it can get bumped. Now, the one thing I tell, especially young hunters or even people that never done it, is when you get up in that tree, because you're going to get up in there every day and you're setting that bow up and you hang it on that hook, you need to make sure when you put that arrow on that you're wiping it down, that you've looked at it and made sure that broadhead is screwed on tight, that your nock's good, that you look at the bow and just look it over, because 90% of it is getting that 180 coming under you. Right. Now you got to be able to shoot, but the worst thing that can happen is something little. You didn't knock your arrow good or something like that. And that's something, you're there anyway. Check it out. I'm talking spend 5 minutes looking and making sure.
Pre-trip your equipment.
Yes. And I always, right before I do my opener in a tree, is I pull that bow back and look through that peep, make sure she's not turned or whatever, and get the feel of it in that tree, and even most of the time just making sure that I got every angle in that feel, and and it's kind of like a golfer. I mean, I keep using golf because we play golf all summer. Yeah. But, you know, those golfers, you talk to a PGA golf guy, he visions that shot before it happens. That's how he's good. Yeah. And I really try to keep up with that every day in the woods. And when I sit down, it's going, okay, if he comes here, if he comes here, if he comes here. And it takes a little bit of element of surprise out when it happens.
Right. Awesome. Mm-hmm. We're going to get in. I want to get in real quick. We'll get in some hunts. Duff, we're going to start with you, buddy. Tell us one of your most memorable hunts. Give us from the rundown from the camouflage you guys use to how you set up trail cameras. Run through some of your sponsors and let us know what you got going on. Well,
you know, probably one of the coolest hunts that comes to mind is a hunt that I had in Kansas. It's really one of the biggest bucks I've ever taken, and we're on our lease there in Kansas, and you know, it's a big crop circle. And the way that we went about hunting this deer, Jeff had actually gotten trail camera pictures of 190-inch deer on this piece, and he was really the most consistent buck in there. There was another deer, which is deer I ended up shooting, that was in there too, but you know, we really were disciplined with the way we went after that deer. The deer were coming out into a wheat field in Kansas. You can feed corn. We had our corn, you know, set up where we get a good bow shot, but in the mornings, those deer were on that crop field, and there was just really no way to get in there truly. You know, a lot of times we think, oh, it's dark, you know, I'll walk down the edge, but that big mature buck, you know, you're pulling in with the headlights and all that kind of stuff. He's not bedding very far from where he's feeding. We were really disciplined. The weather was warm, so, you know, we waited. This was late October. We waited and didn't hunt but 3 times out of 3 sits out of like 7 days, and we would just observe in the morning, and you know, we were seeing this big buck, and you know, we finally got the weather we needed, the wind we needed, and that deer had no idea he was really being hunted. You know, we had gone in at noon to check some trail camera pictures, just like a farmer would do, pull right up to the camera, you know, where they don't think it's just normal farming practices, the truck doesn't bother them. And we went in there, and that hunt, I felt like I did everything right. The deer comes within 15 yards, executed the shot. You know, he runs within eyesight and falls, and he was 160, mid-60s deer. But that was a hunt that, like he's talking about, all the preparation and everything, didn't put down any unwanted scent going in and, you know, walking back into the spot that you know he's got to be close.
Keep the pressure
and
down.
Alert him. And when we went in there, that buck was bedded within 50 yards of where we got in the tree.
Wow.
We got up. I saw him stand up out of his bed, and he kind of chased a doe, hit the horns, and, you know, he came back. But that's when, you know, I executed the shot, and this was before all the target panic had set in. And up until that point in my career, so to speak, I never had a confidence issue on the kill. And I had, you know, 2 weeks earlier, I killed a big 8-point off the ground in Oklahoma that we spent 8 or 9 days, no blind, no nothing, just hiding in a plum thicket. And I remember Jeff thought I was crazy sitting out there in the sand. But when we finally, after 6 or 7 days, he finally got within bow range, I made the shot, and the shot was almost secondary. But now the difference is, you know, killing that buck in Kansas and Oklahoma, did everything right. Now, having what happened last year, the strategic part in getting within bow range is, like you said, 90% of it. The other 10%, which is once you decide to pull that trigger and having your form right and not dropping your, you know, bow arm, you know, your holding arm, or not getting that pin where it needs to be before you pull the trigger, has been what I've been struggling with. But, you know, that hunt in particular, still one of the biggest bucks I've ever killed to date, and did things right, and it all worked out.
Nice. Awesome.
Well, that answered the question, who's stubborn. I forgot about that. He sat in the sand for about 7 days to kill that buck in Oklahoma. And that was pure just being stubborn. I'm killing this deer. I don't care how I got to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Awesome. That's the drive, though. The Duff drive.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff, let's get into one of your most memorable hunts.
You know, maybe one of mine is this year. We have a ranch. A lot of people have heard of it if you've watched the show, called the Wallahatchie, and it's a ranch that I helped set up back in the day. It was just a piece of dirt, and it's out in northwest Oklahoma, no water, and a friend of mine bought it, and I helped strategically set this thing up. I put the windmills in. We put crops in: alfalfa, milo, wheat, and cross fenced it. We had to get the trespassers off. I mean, this all went on for a long time. So, and in it, the place was in the right place. It had great genetics, and I've shot, 3 booners off of it up until this year. And, I knew we were selling it this year. We had made that decision, and, our chipper had, I guess. And, but anyway, my daughter had found a set of sheds when she was 3 years, or when the deer was 3 years old. She was actually, I think, be 8 when she found the sheds, and it was a deer I named Meat right away because he had a lot of big time mass. And at that time, I'd never even laid my eyes on this deer. And that was her first match set she had ever found. And then the next year, I found those sheds. I found, when he was 4, I found the sheds, and he'd gotten a little bigger. And so he was 5 years old this year. And I'd seen the deer one time on the hoof, and that was when I shot Lucky. Right before I shot Lucky, I'd seen this deer. And so anyway, I set my mind on this deer, and I had pressure on me because I didn't know when the ranch was going to sell. We had two buyers looking at it, and I didn't know what my dates were going to be when they were going to tell me, get out of here.
Right.
And I'd been up there so many years, I wanted to leave it on a note where I could look back and go, man, that was my last hunt on that. That was where my daughter had found those sheds. And anyway, this year, we have the guy that produces our show, Brandon Adams. I mean, young guy that works hard for me, Duff, and Chipper, and he had been filming me for the last 7 years. And this year we had made the decision to let him kind of do some other things. I mean, he's still with the show, still produces the show, but we were going to get someone else to film me. And so I went after this deer with a new cameraman, and great kid, films almost probably as good as Brandon, but at the time I didn't know that, and we weren't used to each other. And so anyway, early in the year, I had this meat deer. I'd called him in and had him coming, and he's coming, like we talked about a while ago, just right to my wheelhouse. Everything's going to be perfect. Everything's hunky-dory. And he makes him a turn. He's looking for what made that fighting sound, and he makes a turn to go in the bad place. And when he did, I looked ahead of him, and I saw that lane for him. I saw where I could kill him, no doubt. No camera, I'm killing this deer. Brandon Adams, my old cameraman there, I'm killing this deer because me and him know everything. And we think alike, and I know I can pull back on the deer as long as Brandon Adams over me, and he's going to make me stop if he don't have him. But I had a new cameraman, so my mind's looking back at him. I'm wondering if he's going to get him where this deer's going because it's going to a bad place. So anyway, my fault totally. Cameraman had the deer fine, and I'm not drawed when I need to because I worried about something I shouldn't have been worried about. So long story short, the deer gets away there. And I think there was about 29 days of effort put into this, not all hunting, but finally caught up to the deer on November 13th. I'm beat down a little bit, worried, pressured up, and the deer comes out of a creek bottom and is heading right to me following the doe. They've made up their mind. You can tell when a deer makes a mind. This doe
committed.
had her mind made up. She's walking right by me. And anyway, a coyote comes out.
Oh, man.
Rewind an hour earlier, I could have killed this coyote with my bow, and I chose not to because I didn't want no blood on the ground right there.
Right.
And boy, I was sure wishing I'd put air in that coyote. So anyway, the doe runs off, the big buck bounds off a little bit, but we're out on a crop field, and anyway, the coyote goes on, and I see the doe commit again. They're wanting to go to this other wheat back over behind us, and he commits. And this deer was big body. Thought I was hunting an upper 60 type deer. Deer comes in. He's 25 yards and he's facing me, and I can't do that shot. And so I'm waiting, and it's the quietest night you've ever. So all along now, I got that deal that we're all talking about. I'm not sure because I don't know which way the wind's going to pull,
Right.
and I know that I'm running out of light, everything. So finally, this deer commits and he turns left. He goes to turn left, and when he does, immediately I draw, and he heard it. It was just so quiet. So instead of him getting turned all the way broadside, he stops quartering too hard.
Gotcha.
And the ranch is selling. All this is built up, and this is he ain't broadside, but
right.
So I just pictured that exit. I just pictured it, and I basically had to shoot him right through, just really quartering hard for that other side of the heart. And I let this deer, first of all, this deer looked mad all the time. He's mad at the world. And I shoot this deer and hit right where I want it to, and he never moves. He didn't even react. The deer went right, or the arrow went right at him, didn't react. and it was about 2 or 3 seconds before he reacted, and then he started getting wobbly and fell over. But I mean, that hunt, I had more emotion come out. It was just, sure. I was very emotional. Walked up on the deer. The deer ended up weighing 320 pounds, and he was 177 4/8. And
nice.
Yeah, that's the last deer I'll probably, unless we buy the farm back one day, that I'll shoot on that ground that I spent so much time that Duff and I spent, and that's another thing is, Duff and I met there. Yeah. That's how me and Duff met, was because of that ranch, and not only our business, but our friendship that we have and everything we have together. I mean, it all started there in a sense, and that's really, this ranch taught me how to hunt because you had to do things right. So it's a deer I call meat. It's a deer that'll be on the show this year, and it's something that I take everything to heart, and this and going to go way down in there deep.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That's very cool.
No better stories than one that come from your heart.
Yeah.
That one came from your heart.
Yeah, it almost gave me cold chills. You said your daughter found the antlers and you shot the buck. Man, I can relate to that 110%. Yeah. Well, that's awesome, guys.
Matt, if you could leave us with your number one hunting tip, what would you say?
Number one, I mean, I wouldn't know if I would call it a tip, but I would say to enjoy the moment. And whether or not, it's taken us a long time to acquire the places we go hunt where, to kill big deer, you kind of got to be where they live. And, it's no secret in the Midwest and states like Iowa, northwestern Oklahoma, Kansas, there are more opportunities at those big world-class type deer than where I grew up. But whether or not you're hunting, your neighbor's 20 acres that he's given you permission on in Pennsylvania, where the chances of seeing a 4-year-old are slim just because of the sheer number of hunters or whatever management up there, but just enjoy being out there. And really the process. I mean, it's funny. I was with my field producer this year, and we spend so much time with those guys. They become part of us, and they know every detail about your life and your family and everything that's going on. So they experience everything with you, and it can get tough when you're with somebody, all those many days. And he made a comment, about, man, these people don't realize how much work this is, and it gets so tough. And I said, man, I know what you're saying, but I disagree with you. I mean, part of, we were running back and forth from our place in Kansas to Nebraska, literally because of the wind. The wind wouldn't be right for the stand. So we were driving 3 hours to get in the stand in the afternoon in Nebraska. And, it was burning up the highway back and forth and hanging a stand here and there. But that whole process, I enjoy just being out there, and looking back and, having the opportunity to do what we do and enjoy the outdoors, which is a recreational hobby for most people. It is our job, and we have things that we need to do for the brand and the show and all that kind of stuff. But it's real easy to make it become a job and not enjoy it. And whether or not you got the weekend to hunt, wherever you are, if you get a chance to get out there and be in the woods, especially with a bow and arrow and the challenge it presents, enjoy that whole process. And because when you do have an experience like he was just talking about, they don't just happen all the time. If they did, they wouldn't be as memorable or as important to you.
Exactly.
So that would be my tip as far as, we've talked about equipment and the mental aspect, but just enjoy what you're doing. And it really kind of takes, when you really do that, and I've talked about it, I've put pressure on myself, it takes a lot of that out of it and go, this is something God put here for us to enjoy and pursue. And, at the end of the day, whether we get that deer or not, it is kind of non-circumstantial. I mean, it's just because we're enjoying that whole process of being able to be in the outdoors and, pursue some game.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
You took the words right out of my mouth when they said it. I feel the same way. I mean, it's a privilege. It's about the journey. I had to learn it. I truly did. When we started in TV, the pressure started mounting, and I forgot it was a journey. I thought it was about a kill.
Right.
And I didn't see very many sunrises or sunsets, or definitely didn't take them to heart.
Yeah.
And I learned that, and I got chills on the back of my neck right now because God created all this.
Right.
And I see every sunrise. I see every sunset right from my heart. And I teach everybody that's right behind me filming that same thing, and I make sure they understand that this is from God, and you need to look around and see. I mean, I'm serious. I got so many chills on me right now because I can see it late October and the leaves changing in Iowa. I mean, this is stuff that when you get too much concrete around you, you don't see that.
Absolutely.
And I just thank the good Lord that we have this opportunity. I was born where I was. I had a mom and dad that raised me the right way as Duff's did him. And, you know, I feel for the people that didn't, but I take it extremely, extremely serious. And like I said, where a world is heading in bad, bad places, I look around at hunters and I see good, and I see people helping others. And if you're not, shame on us, because that's what it's all about.
Right.
And I am so proud of being associated with Hunter, and I'm so proud to be associated with Major League Bowhunter and a good friend like like Matt Duff and Chipper Jones, because I feel like we're a part of something bigger. I get a text and I have a picture of someone saying, "You helped us kill this deer. Y'all, with what y'all learned from y'all's mistakes, I killed this deer because of y'all." Or my dad got back into bow hunting because we watched your show. That is something, and that came from God too, put us all together, and to deliver a humble message like we do on Major League Bowhunter means more to me than most people would ever know.
Awesome. That's a great way you put it.
I was going to ask you for your second best tip, but I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah, it's a great thing. You know, we sit here, we talk about, you know, when we started Big Buck Registry, we wanted to help somebody take their hunt to the next level. And that's something that's bred into me. It's bred into Jay. You know, if it wasn't for my grandfather doing what he did for me, I wouldn't be where I, you know, we sit down with guys like yourself. You guys are pros in the industry. You're hunting a lot. You got a lot of knowledge that's in your mind from being out there every day. You know, and that's where we're at with Big Buck Registry. We try to pull that knowledge out of you. And what we've covered here today, you know, we're sitting here with Major League Bowhunter. What an awesome experience. And I've learned a lot just listening to you guys. And I know the listeners are going to really enjoy the content that you put out there.
Well, I appreciate you having us,
thank you for joining us.
Well, yeah, I appreciate you guys more than you know, and meeting you guys. And I tell you what, if y'all need anything from us ever, we'd be. It's always a thrill to come on and talk deer hunting and have somebody look you down and listen for a long time.
We just ended the show in there. We sat here and talked deer hunting the rest of the day.
It happens a lot. We end the recording. We talk for another hour.
But, you know, you guys, every time we run into you, you're real respectful to us, and we enjoy talking with you. And, you know, we're making friends along the way, and people that we relate to 110% with, man. It's awesome to get to know you a little better sitting here, and we're going to get you back on and talk some more.
Sounds good.
God bless you guys.
Been an honor. Thank you guys.
All right.
That was deep.
Wow.
Deep. I had cold chills.
Yeah, it definitely touches your heart.
I don't think there's anybody sitting at the table that wasn't feeling some chills during that conversation.
It literally hurt my throat. I was about to cry. I really was.
It's one of them situations where being here, sitting with, you know, Matt and Jeff, it made you change your whole outlook on everything. You know, these guys are professional hunters with a TV show, you know, Major League Bowhunter, and they're having cold chills talking about stories right here with us at the Big Buck Registry. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that just brings home what the whole hunting aspect of life is all about. Is we hunt for this exact reason.
Mm-hmm.
Is because it brings you back to being human,
right?
Completely.
Mm-hmm.
It brings you over the top for being human. If you don't hunt, you'll never. I don't think you'll ever really experience what it's truly like to be a human.
Right.
Just my opinion.
And I understand why y'all love doing the podcast so much, just by sitting here and listening, because it definitely. To be able to connect with another hunter like that and hear their stories, there's a special bond that is made anyways. But to be able to do this, I understand exactly why you would want to do this all the time. As you know,
it's almost like I'm not saying I'm a drug addict or anything, but it feeds my soul.
Mm-hmm.
No matter if me and Jay are sitting, you know, 1,000 miles away.
800.
Well, sorry, 800.
To be exact.
Details.
But you know, it don't matter if we're sitting 800 miles away, as Jay would say. Or we're sitting next to each other, or the guest is, you know, 4, 5, 6, 800,000 miles away. This experience happens every show, and it's what drives us to bring guests on weekly, every week, for many more years to come.
Yeah, and here's the best part is that that catalog of all those shows we've ever done doesn't disappear.
No,
you want some inspiration? feeling a little down about your hunt, go turn on a podcast.
Exactly.
And listen to the same situation, and maybe that they're going to give you that tip or that encouragement to correct the problem and take your hunt to the next level.
Exactly. So each segment or each show, we have the Chubby Tines tip of the week, and I'm not sure Dusty's ready. I was wondering if Allison might have a tip of the week for us.
My tip of the week.
What's your hunting tip of the week?
Hunting tip of the week. I would say my motto is comfort equals confidence. Confidence equals success.
Yep.
If you're comfortable with your equipment and you're comfortable with your, shot placement and everything else, then your confidence is going to be there and your success is going to happen.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I had that exact situation go on during the deer season this year. I've shared that story on the show before. It wasn't bow hunting in this situation, but I had a scope fog up because of snow that was falling off of the trees as it warmed up. Big snowfall, and it was just hanging there. And when it warmed up to 40 degrees, as I'm tracking this big deer, the snow just falls all over me, all over my gun. I finally catch up with this deer. I have a 5-minute opportunity to watch this deer. I can see it better with my eyes. The problem is it's gotten so cold, and all that moisture that's been coming out around us fogs up my scope. I don't have scope covers. I should have had scope covers or something, and I couldn't get it clean enough to get a good shot. And that's the one thing I didn't want to do, is take a bad shot or a random shot. I could see the deer. I knew where the deer was approximately in the scope, but approximately doesn't cut it.
No.
So I had to wait. And when I finally got it, I had a 4-inch window to shoot through to get to the vitals at about a 75, 80-yard shot. And just as I click off the safety, he's gone. So the lesson is the little details. I will never go out in the woods without some kind of scope cover on a scope gun, or maybe change the firearm I'm carrying that day to an open sight, because that would have fixed the problem too.
Good tip.
Good tip.
Yeah.
Awesome tip.
Yeah, really.
Jay, how can the people reach out to you at the Big Buck Registry?
Let's see. It's best place to go is to the Facebook page, which is bigbuckregistry.com/Facebook, twitter.com/Big Buck Registry. We can go to bigbuckregistry.com, which is our blog and website. You can reach us at 724-613-2825, which is a feedback line, or if you want to shoot us a text or anything like that. Yeah, I'm talking. I know I'm talking. I see you over there. And but we'd like to invite you to join us on iTunes. Download our catalog for free if you'd like, and give us a review right there. bigbuckregistry.com/iTunes. Dusty.
It's no big buck everywhere, big buck, that's for sure. Check me out at facebook.com/chubbytines outdoors, facebook.com/antlerlife, facebook.com/dusty huntneck.
Awesome.
Allison, how can the people reach out to you?
I have a Facebook page, Allison Onan, Always Outdoors. I also have Instagram at Allison Onan, Twitter at Allison Onan, and Hunter's View page. We also have a blog, and I don't have my card, so I don't know the exact
That's all right.
address.
We'll
but
figure
Hunter's
it out.
View.
All right, excellent. Well, it's been a fantastic show, and thank you to our co-host replacement. Well, not really.
Appreciate it,
Thank you
Jay.
guys for letting me sit in.
Dusty, you'll always be here. You know that.
Yeah, it was definitely
But thanks
a
for
treat.
sitting in and being a co-host.
Yeah, awesome.
It was fun.
It was fun. And thanks to Matt Duff and Jeff Danker from Major League Bowhunter, and just kind of talking to us about life.
Yeah,
Life
it's
as a hunter.
great experience, and we're definitely going to have Matt and Jeff come back on, and they will split them out and do separate shows, talk a little bit more about whitetail hunting and get some more details on how they hunt.
Yeah, and they also offered to keep us updated throughout the seasons, like get us on a quick call, say, hey, I'm moving from one state to the other, this is what just happened, and now we're leaving that state to go to the other because of wind direction or whatever it is.
Yeah, climate change, anything that can make them not be able to get in the stand.
Yep. So anyway, man, I think that's a wrap. I'm Jay Scott.
And I'm Dusty Phillips.
And I'm Allison Onan.
And this is the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast. See you next week.
Can't wait.